The small cafe nestled along the cobblestone street, its soft yellow lights glowing like a warm whisper. Graham Westwood sat in a quiet corner, his shoulders slightly hunched to blend in with the modest surroundings. His navy jacket, worn at the edges, and faded jeans pulled from the back of his closet, made him look like any ordinary single father struggling through his days. Beside him, Ella and Emma, his 6-year-old twin daughters, were lost in their coloring, identical chestnut curls bouncing with each giggle as they leaned over a coloring book. They were the light of his life, the only thing that made him, a powerful CEO, feel like just a dad, even with the scars on his heart still unhealed. Graham glanced at the old wristwatch he'd deliberately chosen to complete the disguise. This blind date, kindly arranged by a well-meaning colleague, was about to begin. He wasn't here hoping to find love. He was here to show Ella and Emma that their father was still trying, still believed happiness could bloom, even from the smallest seed. He adjusted his collar, feeling strangely out of place in the role of an average man. Here, no one knew he ran a tech empire, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Tonight, he was just Graham, the father of 2 girls who deserved more than his lingering sorrow. The cafe door jingled as a woman in a tight red dress walked in, the sharp clack of her heels cutting through the mellow air. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on Graham and the girls. Her lips tightened as her gaze moved from his worn jacket to the beat-up hatchback parked outside the window. She approached, her expression barely concealing her disappointment. "Are you Graham?" she asked, her voice cool, like she was ready to end things before they began. He nodded, offering a polite smile. "I am. These are my daughters, Ella and Emma." She didn't even glance at the girls. "I think this is a mistake," she said, turning on her heel. "This isn't what I was expecting." In less than a minute, she was gone, the bell above the door marking her exit like a rushed period at the end of a sentence. Ella looked up, her big brown eyes wide and glimmering. "Was she the date, Daddy?" Graham forced a smile, gently patting her head. "Just a mix-up, sweetheart. Let's finish coloring, okay?" But inside, he felt that all-too-familiar sting, not because of the rejection, but because it reminded him that no matter the disguise, his world didn't easily fit anywhere. He was just packing up, ready to leave, when a gentle voice broke through his thoughts like a cool breeze. "Excuse me, are you Graham? I'm Lily, the one you're meeting tonight." Graham looked up to see a young woman standing before him, her cheeks flushed a warm pink from nervousness. She wore a simple cream sweater and a long skirt, her auburn hair loosely tied back with a pencil tucked behind her ear. In her hand was a crumpled napkin with a doodle of a goofy smiling cat. Her smile was like sunlight, soft and bright, warming the dim corner of the cafe. "Yes, I'm Graham," he said, a bit surprised. "Nice to meet you. These are my daughters, Ella and Emma." Lily smiled, her eyes sparkling with delight. "Oh, 2 beautiful princesses. I didn't know you were bringing such adorable angels." She crouched to their level, her voice gentle. "What are you drawing that's so pretty?" Emma, the bolder of the 2, held up the coloring book. "A castle! But this dragon is really nice, see?" She pointed to a green smudge and flashed a toothy grin. Lily widened her eyes in mock amazement. "A friendly dragon? That's the best kind." She slid the napkin with the cat drawing toward them. "This is Sir Whiskers. He protects my napkins from boring meetings." Ella giggled and reached for the napkin. "Can I keep Sir Whiskers, miss?" "Of course," Lily winked, "but only if you draw him a friend." Graham watched, his plan to leave quietly dissolving. Lily spoke to the girls so naturally, like she'd known them forever. She didn't seem to notice his scuffed jacket or worn shoes, details he had carefully chosen. Instead, she pointed to a stray pencil mark on the paper and suggested it could be a star in the dragon's sky. "I didn't expect you to bring your kids to the date," Lily said, looking up at him without a hint of judgment. "But honestly, I think this is way more fun." Graham smiled, surprised by the sincerity in his own voice. "I didn't want to leave them at home. They're my whole world." Lily nodded, her gaze soft and understanding. "I get it. I'm a preschool teacher, so I know kids have a way of making everything special. If you don't mind, I'd love to hear more about this dragon adventure." The twins clapped excitedly. "Stay, Miss Lily," Emma pleaded, tugging on her sleeve. Graham hesitated. This wasn't the plan. He was supposed to leave, return to his carefully controlled life. But Ella and Emma's glowing faces and Lily's smile, promising something gentler than the world he knew, made him stay. "All right," he said, pulling out a chair. "But only if you tell us Sir Whisker's secret." Lily laughed as she sat down. "Deal, but fair warning, this cat is seriously sneaky." As the twins chattered and Lily launched into a story about her napkin-guarding feline, Graham felt something shift. For the first time in years, he wasn't a CEO or a widower hiding behind a mask. He was just a dad, sitting across from a woman who saw joy in his children and maybe, just maybe, in him too. The cafe lights wrapped around them, and in that moment, Graham believed that this mismatched date might just be the start of something, right? The little cafe still glowed under warm yellow lights, like a world separated from the noise of the city. Graham sat across from Lily, still lightly holding Ella and Emma's coloring book in his hands, as if it anchored him from drifting into his thoughts. The girls were now completely absorbed in Lily's world, giggling as she told stories of Sir Whiskers the cat and his imaginary adventures through a forest made entirely of cookies. Lily had a magical way of telling stories, her voice sometimes ringing like bells, other times soft like a lullaby, captivating Ella and Emma so thoroughly they forgot all about their unfinished drawings. Graham watched them, feeling an unfamiliar lightness settle over him. He had only prepared for a short evening, playing the part of a father doing his best for his children. But Lily, with her genuine smile and judgment-free eyes, was turning it into something else, something where he didn't have to hide. She didn't notice the worn jacket he'd chosen on purpose, or the old hatchback parked just outside the window. She hadn't even asked what he did for a living, or why a single father would bring his kids on a date. Instead, she focused entirely on Ella and Emma, as if they were the center of the universe. "What happened next, Miss Lily?" Emma asked, her cheeks flushed as she rested her chin in her hands, listening intently. A bit of tomato sauce clung to the corner of her mouth, and before Graham could reach for a napkin, Lily gently leaned in, using her illustrated cat napkin to wipe it away. The gesture was so natural that even shy little Ella didn't flinch. She just smiled and kept coloring. "Thank you," Graham said softly. He realized he'd been looking at her longer than he meant to, searching her expression for signs of doubt or hidden motives, things he'd grown used to in his world. But there were none. Lily simply nodded, her smile still bright. "No problem at all," she replied, then turned back to Emma. "Now where were we?" "Oh yes, Sir Whiskers found a tree made entirely of candy, but he had to share it with Little Squirrel, because Little Squirrel knew the way home." Ella interrumpió, señalando una mancha roja en el papel. "Miss Lily, could this be candy for Sir Whiskers?" "Perfect," Lily clapped, making Ella beam. "You're a true artist. I bet Sir Whiskers will love that candy." Dinner arrived: simple spaghetti with tomato sauce and garlic bread. Graham had deliberately ordered the cheapest items on the menu to stay true to his average dad disguise. When the server placed the check on the table, Graham fumbled for his pockets, pretending to forget his wallet. It was part of the plan to see how the woman across from him would react. He braced for a frown, a sigh, or a disappointed glance. But Lily just tilted her head, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "Let me get this," she said gently, pulling her wallet from her bag. "My treat this time. You can get the next one, deal?" She winked at Ella and Emma, like they were sharing a little secret. Graham blinked. "You don't have to." "It's really fine," Lily interrupted, her tone soft but firm. "I know how expensive raising kids can be. Besides, I got to have dinner with two little princesses tonight. That's more than worth it." She smiled at the girls, and Emma immediately leapt into her arms for a hug. "You're the best, Miss Lily," Emma squealed, making Lily laugh out loud. Graham felt his chest tighten, but not from pain. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen, not as Graham Westwood, CEO of a corporation, or a widower carrying the weight of the past, but just as Graham, a dad trying his best. Lily didn't ask about his job, didn't eye his old car or faded clothes. She cared about the girls, the silly story of Sir Whiskers, and making this evening something special. As dinner came to an end, Ella yawned wide, her eyes heavy with sleep. Lily gently stroked her hair and whispered, "Our little princess is getting sleepy, huh?" How about one more story to carry you back to the castle? She began to tell it, her voice gradually softening into a lullaby, and even spirited Emma leaned into her, quietly listening. Graham watched the scene, overwhelmed by a feeling he couldn't quite name. He had grown accustomed to judgmental stares, calculated conversations. But tonight, in this small cafe, there was no pretending. Lily wasn't trying to impress. She wasn't digging into his life. She was simply there with a smile that made him want to believe the world still held beautiful things. "Thank you," he said as they got ready to leave, his voice husky with emotion, "for staying and for everything." Lily smiled, her gaze as warm as the cafe lights. "Thank you for letting me meet Ella and Emma. And you too, Graham. Tonight was really special." As they stepped out of the cafe, the girls held Lily's hands, and Graham walked beside them, feeling lighter than he had in a long time. That night, under the soft glow of the streetlights, he was no longer a man hiding behind a mask. He was just Graham, and for the first time, that felt like enough. In the days following that evening at the cafe, Lily's image lingered in Graham's mind like a melody he couldn't shake. Her radiant smile, the way she gently wiped sauce from Emma's cheek, and her soft, lullaby-like storytelling voice. Each detail played like pieces of a dream he didn't want to wake from. He had lived in a world of tense meetings, numbers, and constant pressure. But that brief moment with Lily and his daughters under the cafe's golden lights had felt more alive than any success he'd ever achieved. Graham knew he couldn't let it end there. On Saturday morning, Graham stood outside Tiny Sprout's preschool, where Lily worked. The small building, painted in pastel shades and decorated with rainbow murals and animal drawings, looked like a completely different world from the steel and glass offices he was used to. Ella and Emma held his hands tightly, each clutching a new drawing, a castle with Sir Whiskers standing nearby, crayon lines shaky but full of love. Graham took a deep breath, his heart beating faster than usual. He wasn't wearing the worn clothes from before, but he hadn't put on a designer suit either. Today, in a simple blue shirt and khakis, he came not as a CEO or a man pretending to be poor, but just as Graham, wanting to say thank you. "Miss Lily's here, right, Daddy?" Ella asked, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the colorful gate. "She is, sweetheart," Graham replied, brushing her hair gently. "We're here to give her your drawing and to say thank you." Emma bounced on her toes, hugging her artwork tightly. "I want Miss Lily to see that I drew Sir Whiskers flying in the sky." Graham smiled, though nerves tugged at him. He had hidden his true identity during the date, and now it was time to be honest. But would Lily still look at him the way she had that night, with eyes full of sincerity, not judgment? As they stepped into the schoolyard, the joyful sounds of children laughing rang out like music. Lily sat among a group of kids, a bunny puppet on her hand, animatedly telling a story. She wore a white t-shirt and jeans, her auburn hair tied up high, a few loose strands falling over her cheeks. When she looked up and spotted Graham and the girls, her eyes widened with surprise and joy. "Ella! Emma!" Lily called, standing up. The girls dashed toward her, wrapping their arms around her like they'd known her forever. Lily knelt down, embracing them as laughter bubbled from her lips, blending with the girls' excited chatter. "Miss Lily, we drew this for you." Emma held up her picture proudly, pointing to Sir Whiskers with bright blue wings. Lily accepted the drawing, her eyes wide with admiration. "Oh, wow, Sir Whiskers can fly now. You two are amazing artists." She turned to Ella, brushing her hair affectionately. "And what about yours, Princess?" Ella shyly handed over her drawing, a castle with a girl in the middle, her hair the same red-brown as Lily's. "That's you standing with us," she whispered. Lily hugged them tightly, her eyes glistening. "This is the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen." She looked up at Graham. "You brought them here, what a lovely surprise." Graham cleared his throat, stepping closer. "Lily, I wanted to thank you for the other night. And I need to tell you the truth." He paused, locking eyes with her, summoning the courage. "I'm not who I pretended to be that night. I'm the CEO of Westwood Tech. I deliberately dressed down to see if anyone would really care about me and my girls, not the money or the title." Lily blinked, clearly surprised. She looked at him, then down at the two girls still in her arms. A soft smile formed on her lips without a hint of blame. "So you were acting?" she asked, teasing gently. "Well, Graham, I didn't care about your jacket or your car. I saw a loving dad and two wonderful girls. That's what mattered most." Graham felt his chest loosen, like a weight had lifted. "You're not upset I wasn't honest?" Lily shook her head, her gaze warm. "I get it. Sometimes people need a little armor to protect what matters. But next time," she added with a smile, "just be yourself, okay? No more acting." Ella tugged at Lily's hand. "Miss Lily, will you have dinner with us again, like last time?" "Yes," Emma chimed in. "We have a new Sir Whiskers story to tell you." Lily laughed, glancing up at Graham, as if waiting for his say. He took a deep breath, his heart thudding for a reason he didn't yet dare name. "What do you think, Lily?" he asked softly. "The three of us would love to take you out again this time with no disguise, no act. Just us, wanting to see you again." Lily tilted her head, her eyes sparkling like stars. "I can't say no to these two princesses," she said, hugging Ella and Emma. "And you too, Graham. I'd be happy to come." As they walked out of the preschool, Ella and Emma each held one of Lily's hands, and Graham walked beside them, holding the girls' drawings. In that moment, under the soft morning sun, he felt a spark of hope flicker to life. Lily didn't just see his daughter, she saw him. Not as a CEO, not as a man pretending to be someone else, just as Graham, a man learning how to open his heart again. Dusk settled gently, bathing the road in golden light as they approached the small cottage nestled in a garden full of wildflowers. Graham drove slowly, his hands tight on the steering wheel, a heaviness blooming in his chest, part nostalgia, part unease. The wooden house with its red-tiled roof and vine-covered porch had once belonged to his mother. It was where he grew up before the city and its towering skyscrapers swallowed his world whole. This was the only place he had kept one that no one associated with Graham Westwood, CEO, but just with Graham, the boy who used to run barefoot through flower beds. Today he was bringing Lily and the girls here not for any calculated reason, but because he wanted to share a piece of his heart. Lily sat in the front seat, turned around, chatting with Ella and Emma in the back. Each girl held a box of colored pencils, excitedly telling her about their new plan to draw the whole world. Lily listened, eyes twinkling, occasionally chiming in with a playful question that made the girls giggle. Graham glanced at her, feeling a rare sense of peace. After confessing his true identity at the preschool, he had feared Lily would grow distant. But she hadn't. She still smiled the same, still treated him and the girls like old friends. "This house is beautiful," Lily said as they pulled up to the porch. She stepped out and took a deep breath of the fresh air filled with lavender and grass. "It's like stepping into a fairy tale." Graham smiled as he opened the door for Ella and Emma, who leapt out eagerly. "It belonged to my mom. I don't come back often, but this place always feels like home." Ella took Lily's hand and tugged her toward the garden. "Miss Lily, there are butterflies here. Look." Emma ran ahead, waving her box of pencils like a magic wand. Lily laughed as the girls pulled her along. Graham watched them, a quiet warmth spreading through him. He had always thought of this house as just a memory, but today, with his daughter's laughter and Lily's presence, it felt alive again, more vibrant than ever. They decided to cook together in the small kitchen, which still held the scent of old wood and dried rosemary from the days his mother baked bread. Graham brought in a basket of fresh vegetables from the garden, while Lily offered to make simple tomato sauce sandwiches. Ella and Emma eagerly volunteered to help, though most of their help involved spilling flour everywhere and giggling while Lily pretended to panic over the flour cloud in the kitchen. "Do you cook here often?" Lily asked as she kneaded dough, her eyes sparkling as she watched Graham slice tomatoes. "I used to," he replied, voice low. "My mother taught me how to bake bread, but after she passed, and then my wife, I stopped coming back. This place is full of memories." Lily nodded without pressing further. She gently placed a hand on Emma's tiny shoulder as the girl tried to knead with her small hands. "This house feels like a big hug. It reminds me of my grandma's home, where I used to spend whole summers playing." Graham looked at her, something unspoken rising in his chest. Lily didn't just listen, she understood. The things he left unsaid, the spaces in his story she didn't try to fill them with empty words. She simply offered her presence, like sunlight filtering through trees. After dinner, the four of them gathered around the old wooden table, now scattered with drawing paper and colored pencils. Ella and Emma begged Lily to tell a story, and she began one about a rabbit living in a magical garden where every flower could sing. The girls listened with wide eyes, occasionally interrupting with questions like, "Did the rabbit meet Sir Whiskers?" Or, "Did the flowers sing really loud?" Graham sat nearby, not drawing, but his fingers tapped softly in rhythm with Lily's voice, as if she were guiding him into a world free of pressure or expectations. "Miss Lily, draw with us." Emma pulled her closer, pushing a blank sheet of paper toward her. Lily smiled, picked up a colored pencil, and began sketching a big flower beside a rabbit with ridiculously long ears. Ella laughed and added Sir Whiskers with wings, while Emma drew a blazing sun in the corner. Graham watched the picture come to life and felt something stir in him. He had grown used to days locked in offices, buried under deadlines and decisions. But here, in this little house, with his daughter's laughter and Lily's storytelling, he felt alive again, not as a CEO, not as a widower, but as a man who was allowed to feel joy, to dream again. As the sun set, they moved to the porch, watching the garden slowly sink into twilight. Lily held Ella and Emma, each girl resting against one of her shoulders, their eyes heavy with sleep. "Miss Lily, will you tell us more stories?" Ella susurró. "Always," Lily replied, her voice soft as the wind. She turned to Graham with a gentle smile. "Thank you for bringing me here. This place, it's special." Graham nodded, emotion rising in his chest. "Thank you, Lily, for making it feel alive again." And in that moment, under the fading light, with two sleepy girls nestled against Lily and the house brimming with memories, Graham felt something inside him, long frozen, begin to thaw. He didn't know what the future held, but right now, in this house hidden in memory, he had found a spark of light, and her name was Lily. Morning sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a golden shimmer over the little garden in front of Graham's mother's wooden cottage. A week had passed since that unforgettable afternoon in the house filled with memories, but Graham still couldn't shake the image of Lily from his mind. Today he brought his daughters back to Tiny Sprouts preschool, where Lily taught, using a simple excuse. The girls wanted to give her new drawings. But deep down, Graham knew he wanted to see her too, the woman who had brought light into the shadowed corners of his heart. As they stepped into the schoolyard, the sound of children's laughter rang out like cheerful music. Ella and Emma, each holding a carefully folded drawing, ran straight toward Lily. She stood in the middle of the playground, leading a treasure hunt game with a group of kids, holding a basket full of glittering paper stars. Dressed in a plaid shirt and jeans, her auburn hair tied high with strands dancing in the breeze, Lily looked up and smiled like sunshine when she saw the girls. "Ella! Emma!" she called, kneeling down with arms wide open. The girls rushed into her embrace, their giggles echoing and drawing curious glances from nearby children. "Miss Lily, we drew something for you," Emma announced, holding up her drawing. It showed Sir Whiskers standing on a cloud, surrounded by twinkling stars. "It's Sir Whiskers going on a sky adventure." Lily took the drawing, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, wow! Sir Whiskers is an astronaut now. You girls surprise me every time." She turned to Ella, who clutched the hem of her shirt shyly. "And what about yours, Princess?" Ella, who usually said very little, hesitated before offering her drawing. On the page were four figures: a tall man, two little girls, and a woman with red hair standing in the middle, holding hands with all three. Beneath the sketch, Ella had scrawled in colored pencil, "Our Miss Lily." Lily blinked, her fingers brushing gently over the words. She looked at Ella, then Emma, her eyes glimmering with emotion. "Our Miss Lily?" she repeated softly, her voice trembling. "This is the most precious gift I've ever received." Standing a few feet away, Graham felt something stir deep inside. Ella shy, withdrawn, Ella had never called anyone something so intimate before. Even Emma, with her energy and boldness, usually took time to warm up to people. But with Lily, they had opened their hearts in record time. He watched the way Lily embraced them, how she gently stroked Ella's hair, and how Emma rested her head on her shoulder as if it were the safest place in the world. He realized no one not outside their family had ever earned their trust so quickly. "Miss Lily, come play with us." Emma tugged at her sleeve, pointing toward the kids running across the yard. "You're great at finding treasure, right?" Lily laughed and stood. "I'm the treasure hunting queen, but I'll need my two assistants, okay?" She led them back to the group, guiding them as they searched for the hidden paper stars scattered across the playground. Graham stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, warmed by the sight. He was used to his girls clinging only to him, but today they were radiant, carefree, as if Lily had become an essential part of their world. After the game, Lily brought Ella and Emma back to him, each proudly holding a glittering paper star. "See this," she said with a wink. "We've got two expert explorers here." Graham smiled, but his gaze lingered on her longer than usual. "Lily, you have a very special way with them. I've never seen them open up to anyone this quickly." Lily blushed, her cheeks tinged pink. She sat down on a nearby wooden bench, the girls still clinging to her, each leaning against one side. "I don't know if I'm doing everything right," she said quietly, sincerely. "I just care about them a lot. They remind me of my students' children who deserve to be loved without fear or doubt." Graham sat down beside her, leaving a respectful space. "You don't have to try so hard, Lily. They feel it, and so do I." She turned to him, her gaze gentle but earnest. "Graham, I'm not great at reading people, but I know that when I'm with you and the girls, it feels right, like I belong in that moment." Her words drifted into him like a soft breeze, passing through the walls he'd built around his heart. He looked at Ella, now drawing another star onto her picture, and Emma animatedly telling Lily about a secret treasure she wanted to find. He thought about all the years he'd spent alone, juggling the roles of father and CEO, forgetting how to truly live. But with Lily, something inside him was beginning to heal, even if just a small piece. "Miss Lily, can you stay with us forever?" Ella preguntó de repente, su voz callada pero llena de esperanza. "Like Sir Whiskers, staying in our castle forever." Lily burst into laughter and hugged them both tightly. "I'll come whenever you need me, okay?" "That's a promise." She looked at Graham then, her eyes saying the promise was for more than just the girls. Graham nodded, emotion welling up in his chest. "Thank you, Lily," he said, his voice thick, "for giving the girls and me a day like this." Under the soft morning sun, surrounded by children's laughter, Graham felt his heart grow lighter. Lily, with her genuine heart and the love she gave his daughters, was becoming an irreplaceable part of their lives. And he knew, no matter what the future held, this moment with our Miss Lily would forever shine like a star in his memory. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Mornings at Tiny Sprouts Preschool were usually filled with laughter, but today the air hung heavy like the sky before a storm. Lily stood in the corner of the playground, her hands tightly gripping the basket of paper stars, trying to smile at the children playing around her. But her eyes betrayed her unease. Just days ago, she had been drawing pictures with Ella and Emma, listening to their giggles in Graham's memory-filled cottage. Now her world had been turned upside down, all because of a single photo. That photo, taken in the garden of the old cottage, had been snapped unknowingly by a passerby. In it, Lily sat between Ella and Emma, all three laughing, while Graham stood behind them, looking on with gentle eyes. It seemed harmless. But when uploaded online, the image spread like wildfire. News sites ran headlines like, "Preschool Teacher Targets Millionaire CEO," and "Gold Digger Uses Kids to Get Close to Billionaire." The comments were cruel, accusing her of being an opportunist, a woman hiding ambition behind a sweet smile. None of them knew her what she felt for the girls, the sincerity she shared with Graham. But truth didn't matter. The media had painted a version of Lily that even she didn't recognize. That morning when Lily arrived at school, she was handed a notice from the administration. She was temporarily suspended for damaging the school's public image. The principal, though sympathetic, explained that parents were concerned, that reporters had begun gathering outside the gates, and that the school couldn't handle the public pressure. Lily stood silently in the office, clutching the paper, nodding without a word. She didn't blame them, they were only trying to protect the children. But inside, she felt like something precious had been ripped away, people's trust in her heart. Outside the school, reporters swarmed, cameras pointed at anyone who came or went. "Miss Lily, are you using CEO Westwood's kids to get close to him?" One shouted as she tried to slip through the crowd to get home. Lily kept her head down, saying nothing, wishing she could run from the stairs. She made it back to her small apartment and shut the door tight, but the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Graham had called, texted, even emailed. His messages were full of concern. "Lily, I've seen the news. Please talk to me. I want to help." But she didn't answer. Lily sat curled on the couch, hugging a pillow, staring at the drawing Ella and Emma had given her Sir Whiskers, floating on a cloud. She was afraid that if she faced Graham, everything would only get worse. She was afraid to see a change in his eyes, to see that maybe, just maybe, he believed what the media said. More than anything, she was afraid that her presence would hurt Ella and Emma, the two little girls who had called her our Miss Lily. Across the city, Graham sat in his office at Westwood Tech, his screen flashing with headline after vicious headline. He clenched his fists, struggling to contain his fury. He knew the media world, how easily words could be twisted for clicks, but he hadn't expected it to hit Lily, the woman who had brought light into his life and his daughter's. He remembered her smile, the way she gently wiped sauce from Emma's cheek, how she held Ella close when she shyly gave her a drawing. Lily didn't deserve this. He called again, but it rang out unanswered. "Lily, please," he texted, his tone bordering on a plea. "This isn't your fault. I want to see you. Let's face this together." But his words disappeared into silence. Back in her apartment, Lily began to cry, quiet tears spilling onto the girl's drawing. She didn't care what people said about her, she was used to being misunderstood. But the thought of Ella and Emma hearing those cruel things, of them believing she had used them, it tore her apart. All she'd wanted was to protect those girls, to treasure the simple moments they'd shared, and now she felt like she'd ruined it all. She stood, wiped her tears, and looked out the window. The reporters were still there, hovering like vultures, cameras poised. She knew Graham hadn't caused this. He was just as much a victim of the media storm as she was. But she couldn't face him. Not now. Not when she wasn't sure she deserved the trust he and the girls had placed in her. Meanwhile, at home, Ella and Emma sat on the floor, drawing more pictures. "Where's Miss Lily, Daddy?" Ella asked, her voice quiet and sad. "Isn't she going to visit us anymore?" Graham knelt beside them, pulling them into his arms. "Miss Lily just needs a little time," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I promise, we'll see her again. She's someone very special to us, right?" Emma nodded, clutching her drawing. "She's our Miss Lily," she whispered. Graham's hands curled into fists, his heart filled with resolve. He couldn't let Lily go through this alone. Even if she was pushing him away, he knew he had to find a way to bring her back, not just for the girls, but for himself. Because he had found light in her smile and he wasn't about to lose it. But first, the media storm had to be faced. And if it meant standing against it with everything he had then, that's exactly what he would do. A light rain fell over the quiet street where Lily's apartment sat tucked away on the third floor of an old building. The dim streetlights reflected in puddles on the pavement, painting a still, almost peaceful scene completely at odds with the chaos brewing below. Dozens of reporters had gathered in front of the entrance, their cameras and microphones raised high, undeterred by the drizzle, hoping to capture any moment from the so-called preschool teacher chasing a millionaire CEO. A few steps away, Graham stood holding an umbrella, his expression firm but weighed down with worry. He had been trying to reach Lily all week, calls, texts, emails, but she hadn't replied, as if she wanted to disappear from his world. He knew she was hiding, but he couldn't let her face this media storm alone. Inside her apartment, Lily sat curled on the couch, clutching the drawing from Ella and Emma, the crayon lines now smudged by tears. She had read the cruel articles, the vicious comments calling her a gold digger or a teacher exploiting children. Each word felt like a knife, not because they wounded her pride, but because they threatened the safety of Ella and Emma, the two little girls she had loved from the moment they met. She feared her presence would drag them into the spotlight, a place they didn't belong. She had stayed silent and avoided Graham not out of anger, but to protect the precious moments she'd shared with the girls. Outside, rain soaked through Graham's coat as camera flashes flickered like lightning. A murmur rose among the crowd of reporters. "Isn't that Graham Westwood? Where's the teacher?" Graham stepped forward, standing right at the gate, eyes lifted toward Lily's window, where a faint light glowed behind the curtain. "Lily," he called, voice rising above the rain in the crowd's noise. "I know you're up there. Please, hear me out." Inside, Lily froze, her heart pounding. She pulled the curtain aside just enough to see him standing in the rain, ignoring the flashing cameras and the dozens of prying eyes. She wanted to run down to him, to say she didn't blame him, but fear held her back. If she stepped out, would Ella and Emma get hurt by the backlash? Graham took a deep breath, his voice low but steady, cutting through the murmurs. "I don't care what they say about me, about you, or anything else. I only know one thing: I don't need anyone else. I just need you." He paused, eyes still locked on her window. "You're the one who brought joy to my daughters. To me. You did nothing wrong, Lily, and I won't let you go through this alone." The reporters erupted, cameras flashing wildly, microphones pushing forward. "Mr. Westwood, are you confirming your relationship with the teacher? Is she exploiting your kids to get close to you?" But Graham said nothing more. His gaze stayed fixed on the window, waiting, hoping for any sign from Lily. She clutched the drawing tighter, tears falling freely. His words warmed her heart like fire, but they also made it ache. She wanted to believe him, but she kept seeing Ella and Emma's smiles, and the words, "Our Miss Lily." The thought of those girls being hurt because of her made it impossible to move. Still, she took a breath, wiped her tears, and stepped out onto the small balcony. The crowd erupted again, flashes blinding, voices rising, but she didn't look at them. She looked only at Graham. "Graham," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm not afraid for myself. I'm afraid for Ella and Emma. I don't want them dragged into this. Please, go." Graham stood frozen, heart clenched. He wanted to push through the crowd, to hold her, to promise he would protect them all. But Lily's eyes filled with pain, and resolve stopped him. She wasn't sending him away out of anger. She was putting the girls first. "Lily," he said, voice hoarse, "I won't leave you alone in this. I promise." Then slowly, he turned and walked away, not because he was giving up, but because he respected her fear. Lily closed the balcony door behind her, slid down to the floor, and cried silently. She wasn't crying over the accusations. She was crying because of Graham's promise, because he said all he needed was her. But the fear of losing Ella and Emma, of losing those innocent moments with them, kept her from reaching out. The next morning, Graham called a press conference at Westwood Tech's headquarters. The room was packed, reporters, cameras, microphones ready and waiting. He stood at the podium in a black suit, eyes steady and full of intent. "I'm here today to address the false rumors circulating about Miss Lily Tran," he began, his voice calm but firm. "She is a dedicated preschool teacher who brought joy and comfort into my daughters' lives, Ella and Emma. She has never taken advantage of anyone, and the accusations against her are baseless." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I ask you to respect her, and to respect my family." Then his gaze locked onto the cameras. "Lily is not a gold digger. She's the one who taught me and my daughters that real love doesn't need status or money." The conference ended, but Graham knew words alone couldn't erase the damage. He only hoped Lily was watching, and that she would understand he was fighting for her. Back in her apartment, Lily sat curled on the couch, eyes on the TV screen. Graham stood tall on the news broadcast, defending her with unwavering calm. She clutched the girl's drawing to her chest as fresh tears welled in her eyes. His public statement was a ray of light, but the storm wasn't over. And though her heart now belonged to all three of them, she wasn't sure if it was strong enough to weather what still lay ahead. Lily's small apartment sat in the muted light of late afternoon, the curtains drawn tightly to block out the curious eyes from outside. It had been 2 days since Graham's press conference, 2 days since he stood before the world to defend her, to say she wasn't the woman the media made her out to be. His words echoed in Lily's mind, but still she hadn't replied to any of his messages. She was scared, scared that stepping into Graham's world would drag Ella and Emma into more storms, scared that her heart, though deeply connected to all three of them, might not be strong enough to endure more cruelty. She sat on the sofa, clutching the girl's drawing, her fingers brushing over the crayon words. Our Miss Lily, her chest aching with longing. Meanwhile, at Graham's home, Ella and Emma sat on the living room floor, colored pencils scattered around them. They had spent the entire morning drawing a new picture, each line more careful than ever. On the page was a big house, a garden full of flowers, and 4 people standing hand in hand. Graham, Lily, Ella, and Emma. In the corner, Emma had scrawled, "Our family." Ella, who rarely spoke much, looked at the drawing and whispered to her sister, "Miss Lily is sad. We have to bring this to her." Graham entered the room to find his daughters clutching the picture, determination shining in their eyes. "Daddy, take us to Miss Lily," Emma said firmly. "We want her to smile again." Graham looked at his girls, his heart warming. He knew Lily had been avoiding him, but he also saw something unshakable in their eyes, a strength even greater than all the power he possessed. "All right," he said, gently ruffling their hair. "Let's go see Miss Lily." When the car stopped in front of Lily's building, the crowd of reporters had mostly cleared out, with only a few lingering under the light drizzle. Graham held Ella and Emma's hands, each girl cradling the drawing like a treasure. They climbed the stairs, Graham's heart pounding, unsure if Lily would open the door. He knocked, soft but steady. "Lily, it's me. And the girls." Inside, Lily froze. Her hands trembled at the sound of his voice. She hesitated, but the small footsteps she heard beyond the door, those tiny, familiar steps, were impossible to ignore. She opened the door, and before she could say a word, both girls rushed forward, wrapping their little arms tightly around her. No words were spoken, just the warmth of that embrace, honest and full, as if they were saying everything would be okay. Lily knelt down, tears spilling freely. She hugged them close, soaking in their warmth, her heart beginning to quiet. "I missed you," she whispered, voice breaking. Emma placed the drawing into her hands, eyes shining. "Miss Lily, we made this for you, so you won't be sad anymore." Lily unfolded the drawing, seeing the house, the garden, and the 4 of them holding hands. The words, "Our family," made her burst into tears. She hugged them tighter, then looked up at Graham. His eyes were filled with concern, but also with something deeper, something steady and kind. "Thank you for bringing them," she said, voice trembling. Graham stepped inside and gently closed the door, shutting out the world. "I couldn't keep them at home. They wouldn't stop asking for you," he said, his voice warm and low. "And I didn't want to be home either, not while you were hurting." Lily invited them into the cozy apartment, filled with the gentle scent of candles and old books. She offered to make a simple dinner spaghetti with homemade tomato sauce, the same meal Ella and Emma had loved at the cottage. All 4 of them gathered in the kitchen. Lily showed the girls how to stir the sauce, while Graham chopped vegetables, occasionally glancing at her with a soft smile. There were no reporters, no CEO titles, just Ella's giggles when she spilled some pasta, Emma spinning tales about Sir Whisker's kitchen adventure, and the sound of 4 people learning how to breathe together again. Dinner was served at the small wooden table, candlelight casting a warm glow across their bright, joyful faces. Ella and Emma competed to tell the best stories while Lily listened with laughter, chiming in with silly comments that had the table bursting with laughter. Graham sat across from them, his heart full. He watched Lily wipe sauce from Emma's cheek, smile at Ella's drawings, and he knew this was the family he and his daughters had been searching for. When dinner ended, Ella and Emma clung to Lily, unwilling to let go. "Miss Lily, stay with us," Emma pleaded, her eyes glistening. Ella leaned her head against Lily's shoulder, yawning but still gripping her hand. Lily looked at Graham, hesitation in her eyes. "Can they stay a little while longer?" she asked quietly. I don't want them to leave so late." Graham nodded, his heart thudding. "If you don't mind, we'll stay," he said gently. He knew it wasn't just for the girls, he didn't want to leave her either. That night, Lily laid out blankets for Graham on the sofa. She and the girls curled up on the bed, both of them clinging to her as if afraid she'd disappear in her sleep. Graham sat nearby, watching them, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. In that small apartment, as soft rain tapped against the window, there were no media storms, no pressure. Only the quiet breathing of children, Lily's tired but content smile, and an unspoken promise in Graham's heart that he would do whatever it took to protect this little family they'd built. A gentle afternoon sun blanketed the lush green meadow, where Graham had laid out a large blanket beneath an old oak tree. A soft breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and wildflowers, blending with the joyful giggles of Ella and Emma. Graham had invited Lily on a spontaneous picnic with him, and the girls a simple idea, but one filled with meaning. It was his way of stretching out the quiet happiness they had rediscovered in Lily's small apartment. Lily sat between the girls, holding a picture book in her lap, telling the story of a little bear searching for a lost star. She wore a white blouse and a flowing skirt, her auburn hair loosely tied back, a few strands dancing in the wind. Graham sat across from them, a sandwich in hand, but his eyes never strayed from her or the girls. Ella and Emma each held a red balloon, occasionally interrupting the story with innocent questions. "Did the bear find the star, Miss Lily?" Ella asked, eyes wide with wonder. Before Lily could respond, Emma stood up, pointing at the sky. "I see the star, right there." Lily laughed, pulling both girls into her arms, her storytelling voice rising and falling like a lullaby, wrapping the meadow in its quiet rhythm. Graham watched the scene, his heart full of something he hadn't dared to name. After the media storm, after the days of silence, and after the moment Ella and Emma had embraced Lily at her door, he knew he didn't just want her to be part of his daughter's lives, he wanted her to be part of his. He had once lost the woman he loved, convinced his heart would remain frozen forever. But Lily, with her gentle smile and unconditional love for his girls, had made him believe in a new future. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in golden hues, Lily continued reading, her voice as soft as the breeze. Emma, resting against her shoulder, suddenly looked up, her brown eyes shining. "Miss Lily," she said, small but clear, "can I call you Mom Lily?" Time seemed to stop. Lily blinked, her breath catching in her throat. She looked from Emma to Ella, who nodded silently beside her, her eyes filled with hope. Tears welled up and slipped down Lily's cheeks. She pulled both girls into her arms, holding them tightly. "Oh, Emma, Ella," she whispered, her voice breaking. She couldn't say anything more. She simply held them close, letting her tears fall onto their soft brown curls. Graham's chest tightened. He moved closer, kneeling beside Lily, and gently took her hand. He didn't speak, but his eyes, deep and filled with love, said everything. It was the look of a man who had finally found something truly precious after years of emptiness. Lily met his gaze through her tears, smiling softly, her fingers tightening around his in silent reply. "Miss Lily is ours," Ella whispered, her head resting on Lily's shoulder. "Forever, right?" Lily nodded, wiping her tears. "Forever," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I'll always be here for you." As twilight settled in, Ella and Emma, tired from a day full of laughter and stories, curled up on the blanket and drifted off to sleep in Lily's arms. Graham gently covered them with a light blanket and sat down beside Lily. Together they watched the first stars appear in the sky. The air was quiet, filled only with the soft rustle of the wind and the steady breath of the girls. "Graham," Lily whispered, her voice like a breeze, "I never thought I'd hear a child call me Mom. I don't know if I deserve it." Graham turned to her, his gaze gentle but unwavering. "You do, Lily. No one has ever opened Ella and Emma's hearts the way you have. And no one has ever made me feel alive again. The way you have." Lily lowered her eyes, fingers brushing through the grass. "I'm scared too, Graham. I'm scared I'm not strong enough for your world, that the media will strike again. But when I'm with the girls with you, I feel like anything is possible." Graham held her hand tighter. "I was scared too, Lily. After losing my wife, I thought I'd never be able to open up again. But you showed me I could dream of a family, of a future. And I want to build it with you. She looked up, her eyes shining under the starlight. I dream too, Graham. I dream of a place where Ella and Emma can grow up with laughter, where we don't have to hide or be afraid. I want to keep teaching, to bring joy to children, just like your girls brought joy to me. They sat quietly, fingers intertwined, eyes on the sky. Graham spoke of the years he'd spent trying to be a good father, but always feeling something was missing. Lily shared her own dreams, a mobile classroom to reach underserved children, to bring light into little lives. They spoke of their pasts, his loss, her years of being misunderstood, but every word built a bridge between two hearts that had once believed they'd be alone forever. Beneath the starry sky, with Ella and Emma sleeping peacefully beside them, Graham and Lily didn't need any promises. The clasped hands, the look in their eyes, and Emma's whispered, "Mom, Lily," had said everything. They didn't know what the future would bring. But in this moment, they had each other, a little family built not from perfection, but from hugs, drawings, and a love that asked for nothing but honesty. Morning sunlight poured through the windows of Lily's small apartment, illuminating the drawing Ella and Emma had taped to the wall, four figures holding hands in a garden. Beneath the words, "Our family." Lily stood at the kitchen counter, brewing coffee, smiling as she listened to the sound of Graham and the girls chattering in the living room. Ever since that starlit picnic the night Emma had asked, "Can I call you Mom, Lily?" and Ella had quietly nodded, Lily had felt her heart anchor itself to Graham and his daughters. The media storm had calmed after Graham's public defense, but within her, a bigger dream had begun to grow, one not just for Ella and Emma, but for every child who deserved a smile. Today, she decided to share that dream. As the four of them sat around the breakfast table, Lily took a deep breath, her eyes sparkling. "Graham, Ella, Emma," she began gently. "I've always dreamed of a mobile classroom, a little bus filled with books, paint, and joy. I want to bring it to children in need, kids who don't have access to school. I want them to learn, laugh, and dream, just like you two do." Emma, her mouth still sticky with strawberry jam, squealed, "A classroom that drives? Like Sir Whisker's cloud car?" Ella giggled, imagining a bus with shimmering wings. Graham looked at Lily with admiration, shining in his eyes. "That's a beautiful idea," he said, his voice low and warm. "But have you thought about how to begin? You'll need a vehicle, supplies, volunteers." Lily nodded, her fingers curling around her coffee mug. "I know it won't be easy. I've saved up a little, but I'm not sure I can do it alone." She looked at him earnestly. "I don't want to rely on you, Graham, but I want you to know how much this means to me." Graham reached over, placing his hand gently on hers. "Lily, you're never alone. If this is your dream, I want to help make it real, not because I'm a CEO, but because I believe in you. I believe in your heart." Over the next few weeks, Graham turned his words into action. He mobilized a team at Westwood Tech to design a custom mini-school bus, complete with bookshelves, art tables, and bright learning boards. He contacted nonprofit organizations for support, always keeping his name in the background. This was Lily's project, not his. Meanwhile, Lily worked tirelessly. She connected with schools in underprivileged areas, recruited volunteers, and designed a creative, engaging curriculum. Ella and Emma joined in eagerly, coloring welcome signs for Mom Lily's mobile classroom. On launch day, the bus rolled up to a low-income neighborhood, its sides painted with rainbows and a flying Sir Whiskers, an idea born from the girls' imaginations. Children came running, eyes wide with wonder, as Lily stepped down from the bus with a basket full of glittering paper stars. "Hello, everyone," she called cheerfully. "Today we're going to learn, paint, and tell stories." The kids, shy at first, gradually gathered around her, laughter bubbling up as she told a tale about a singing rabbit. Graham stood nearby with Ella and Emma, watching Lily shine among the children. He remembered when headlines had labeled her a gold digger. Now, as she knelt to wipe away a little girl's tears, or helped a boy draw his very first picture, the world was seeing her differently. Volunteers, parents, and even a few journalists began calling her the teacher with heart. New articles surfaced no longer about the CEO's girlfriend, but about Lily Tran, the woman bringing education and joy where it was needed most. After the event, when the children had gone home, Lily stood beside the bus, eyes glistening as she looked at Graham and the girls. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "Without you, this dream would have stayed an idea." Graham shook his head and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "No, Lily, this was your dream. I just helped give it wings like Sir Whiskers." Ella and Emma squeezed in between them, arms wide. "We helped too, Mom Lily." Emma beamed, pointing proudly to the sign on the bus with a cartoon cat soaring through the sky. Ella nestled into Lily's side and whispered, "You're the best teacher ever, Mom Lily." Lily laughed through tears, hugging them tightly. "You two are my pride and joy," she said. Then turning to Graham, her eyes full of feeling, she added, "And you're the reason everything feels possible." That evening, back at Lily's apartment, they gathered around the dinner table, sharing a simple meal of spaghetti and garlic bread. Ella and Emma recounted stories of the children they'd met at the mobile classroom, while Lily shared her joy in watching their eyes light up as they painted. Graham listened quietly, his heart full. He looked at Lily not as the CEO's girlfriend, but as the heart of their family, the teacher who had turned her dream into a beacon, and the woman who had completed their lives. Under the soft evening lights after the girls had fallen asleep, Lily leaned against Graham's shoulder, gazing up at the drawing on the wall. "I used to think I wasn't strong enough to step into your world," she whispered. "But now I know I belong here, with you, with Ella and Emma, and with this dream." Graham kissed her forehead. "You've always belonged here, Lily, and we'll be by your side always." Graham's mother's wooden cottage, with its vine-covered porch and lavender-scented garden, once again became a refuge for their little family. The golden sunset bathed the garden in warm hues, like a scene painted in light. Lily sat on the wooden bench with Ella and Emma on either side, each holding a box of colored pencils, busily drawing new pictures. Graham stood nearby, hands in his pockets, watching the three of them with a soft, lingering gaze. After the storms of media attention, after dreams and pains had been shared, he knew this was the moment to turn an unspoken promise into something real. For the past week, Ella and Emma had been working on a secret gift. They whispered to each other, giggling every time Lily wasn't looking. Inside their toy chest, among shiny beads and yarn, of every shade the girls had carefully crafted a ring. Simple but made with love. Red and blue yarn twisted together, adorned with tiny beads that sparkled like stars. "For Mom Lily," Emma whispered to Ella, eyes bright. Ella nodded and held the treasure close, like it was the most precious thing in the world. That evening, the four of them gathered in the small kitchen, the scent of toasted bread and pumpkin soup filling the air. Lily, wearing an apron tied at the waist, was telling a story about a singing bunny, making the girls burst into laughter. Graham watched her, his heart full. He once believed love was a luxury, something out of reach after loss. He thought he would remain a single father forever. But Lily, with her warm smile, her heart for his daughters, and her dream of a traveling classroom, had changed everything. After dinner, Ella and Emma suddenly jumped up, tugging Lily's hands toward the porch. "Mom Lily, we have a gift for you," Emma exclaimed, hiding her hands behind her back. Lily looked surprised and glanced at Graham, who simply smiled, his eyes twinkling with something unspoken. Emma opened her small hand, revealing the yarn and bead ring. "We made this for you," she said proudly, "so you'll always be with us." Lily blinked, tears welling. She knelt down, hugging the girls tightly, her fingers trembling as she took the ring. "Oh, sweethearts, it's beautiful," she whispered, voice catching. "I'll treasure it forever." Graham stepped forward and knelt beside her. He gently took Lily's hand, his eyes deep and filled with love and certainty. "Lily," he said, voice low but steady, "I don't have a diamond ring or fancy words, but I have Ella and Emma, and I have this ring made from the tiny hands of our girls. All I want is a home, one with you, with our children, and with these little hearts." He paused, drawing a breath. "Lily, will you marry me?" Time stood still. Lily looked at him, then at the ring in her hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. She nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, Graham, I'll marry you." She slipped the yarn ring onto her finger, its softness hugging her skin, and wrapped her arms around Graham, feeling his warmth blend with the laughter of the girls. The twins squealed, jumping and hugging them. "Mom, Lily is ours forever," Emma shouted while Ella snuggled into Lily's arms, beaming. Lily laughed through her tears, holding all three close, her heart blooming with happiness. As night fell, they sat together on the porch, gazing up at the starry sky. Ella, sketchbook in hand, suddenly held up a new drawing. On the paper were 5 people: Graham, Lily, Ella, Emma, and a tiny baby in the center, holding a balloon. "We want a baby brother or sister," Ella said shyly, her voice full of hope, "so our family can be even bigger." Lily and Graham looked at each other, eyes shining. Lily giggled, pulling Ella into her arms. "A baby, huh?" she said softly. "Well then, we'll need lots of drawings to welcome them, won't we?" Graham took Lily's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "A bigger family," he repeated in a warm tone. "I like the sound of that." He looked at her with a gaze full of promise, a future filled with laughter, drawings, and love. Beneath the stars, they sat together. Ella and Emma fell asleep curled up in Lily's arms, each still clinging to the hem of her shirt. Lily rested her head on Graham's shoulder, her fingers brushing over the yarn ring. "I never thought I'd have a family like this," she whispered. "Not rich, not perfect, but complete." Graham kissed her forehead, his voice husky. "It's everything I ever wanted, Lily. You, the girls, and a home where we can just be ourselves." Ella's drawing lay on the bench, 5 figures holding hands beneath a starry sky. The yarn ring shimmered under the moonlight, a reminder that true love needs no diamonds or fame, just tiny hands, an honest heart, in a home where dreams can grow. Lily looked at Graham, then at Ella and Emma, tears of joy silently falling. She knew from this moment on she wasn't just the teacher with heart. She was Mom Lily forever, part of this beautiful, imperfect little family.